Welcome back, good people. Welcome to the March edition of the Texas League video podcast, where we have decided to keep our during the season skills sharp in the off season, as all the greats do, by continuing to train and get better at our craft. Where here it's no longer us doing it on the field, but us retired old heads talking smack about the current generation, which is what old heads do. But I'm not going to make up any stories about what we would have done back in our day of the combine. We'll just continue to let the imagination do what it does. So I am one of your hosts, Dwayne Devo Morrow, along with my co-host.
Wow, I'm just gonna start off by saying I got pro day numbers, but we're not gonna talk about those.
Introduce yourself to the people that don't know you yet.
Oh, for the people who don't know me, name is Jared Calendar, commissioner of the league, and if everything works out, the 2023 champion. But we'll get there later, much later in the season.
We probably won't, but hey, it's always good to be hopeful. And yes, that is me talking smack as a 0-time champion to what, a 3-time champion?
Three.
That's okay. You're gonna be stuck on third like a bad baseball player. Because I'm getting in there.
Today is opening day, at least for the Astros.
And we do say go Yankees, because I know the Astros game is currently going on. So I don't know what the score is right now. But we might check in, we might not. But shout out to the H-Town World Series champion Astros, and especially shout out to Megan, yes, Lord Stallion.
Oh, no, that was coming. Oh, I knew that comment was coming.
It's only natural, my brother, only natural. So before we jump into some of the off season, let's start by taking a look back at the final game of the 22-23 NFL season, the Super Bowl, which was a spirited contest, to say the least. Patrick Mahomes returned back to the Super Bowl and reminded people, everyone out there who's trying to look for the next Patrick Mahomes, he had to remind people that the current Patrick Mahomes might not be finished just yet. What did you think about that, Jared?
You know, after the Super Bowl where him and the Bucks competed, well, they weren't really competing because he was running for his life due to his offensive line being banged up. You know, there was a lot of comparisons to Tom Brady, but I feel that he is Patrick Mahomes and Brady is Brady. I think when it's all said and done, that Patrick Mahomes might have a very similar resume and a number of Super Bowl appearances and maybe even wins, because he already got, what, 3 Super Bowl appearances and 2 wins?
Right, in what,
if
6 years?
He played nearly as long as Brady. He been to what? Like I said, he only been in the league, what, just 6 years?
I believe this was year 6 and year 5, and year 5 is a starter.
And he didn't play he didn't play the first year. He was sitting there, he was learning from Alex Smith, so
or learning what not to do from Alex Smith. So
you know.
So
what he was learning is up to debate.
This is true. But I mean, I will say that was one of the most thrilling Super Bowls we've seen in the last couple of years. Like last year's Super Bowl between the Bengals and Rams was a big one. It had a very exciting fourth quarter. This one was just trading punches between the Eagles and Chiefs. Like the thing, even when the Eagles had a good lead, because of that man, Mahomes, you never felt like they were out the game. Like you never felt like there was not an opportunity that they were going to be able to come back. And ultimately, people will say that it came down to a quote unquote controversial play at the end of the game that put Kansas City in much better field goal position. Because let's be clear, they were probably already in field goal position before the holding call, but the holding call made it all but a foregone conclusion. Um, what do you think, dear? Right call, bad call?
When the player in question says, "Yeah, I held him," what is to be discussed? He openly said, because I know there is a guy that I went to college with who played DB who said, if it's holding or six, we hold it. And basically, that's what he said. He's like, if it's holding or we giving up six, we hold them. We don't take the holding call. He's like, especially that close to the end zone. He's like, he's like, the penalty is almost negatable because it's so. He's like, when you that close, it ain't like you giving up a whole bunch of yards. You rather give them the penalty yards and live to play another play versus give up the six. So,
That's
like
true.
you said, with Harrison Butker's leg, they might have already been in field goal range.
Right. Uh,
So, but that's okay. All I know is I won some money on my squares, and that was
that I'm sure that made you very happy. Uh, like I said, as a person that's been a referee and I've been a deep wing, um, I would have been. I get the call. I definitely get the call, and in the end, if it's a foul on the first play of the game, it's a foul on the last play of the game. I know there's this whole thing about, especially in football, in basketball, there's this thing about swallow the whistle at the end of the game. I don't prescribe to that. A hack is a hack, a foul is a foul, travel is travel, whatever it is. If it's the same, if it's at the start of the game, if it's a call, it's a call at the end of the game. So if that's a call that you would have made in the first quarter of a of a game that happened in week one, then it's absolutely a foul at the end of the Super Bowl. So a lot of people were complaining about the officiating, what was missed, what was that. Referees are not perfect. They make the calls that they see, and they miss. Sometimes they miss them. I do not think that was a missed call. I think it was a good call. I will say this: it would be very easy for me to take the stance of saying, "Oh, the refs gave KC the game to put them in the Super Bowl, then they gave them the Super Bowl." But even as a Raiders fan, I'm not going to be that petty. They earned that. They earned both of those victories, and so hats off to the Chiefs. Um, they now join all of the other AFC West teams in having 3 Super Bowl victories. Oh, almost all of the other AFC West teams. One of the teams in the AFC West just can't seem to get right and can't get a Super Bowl win except on Madden. So, Chargers, get your stuff together, man. I mean, we could join the NFC East as the only other division where every team has won at least one Super Bowl. But where y'all at, man? So, anyway, though, moving on. So, after the Super Bowl, you had the Senior Bowl, and then of course, even bigger than the Senior Bowl itself was the NFL Combine. So, you know, Jared and a few of the people that we know, like myself, we are for real football fans, and so we are those guys that will watch Combine feeds, we will check Combine stats. Uh, Not that we are necessarily addicted to the game, but we call it a love of the game, an extreme love of the game. So that being said, the other reason why we try to watch it is because we're fans of our respective teams, and we are always curious about a who are the standouts that we might want to see put on our team's colors in the fall, but also who might be those long shots, who might be the guy that doesn't have a big name, wasn't looking great coming out of, might have been to a smaller school, might not have the publicity of some of the other guys, but when you look at them, they might have some game for you. So let's take a couple of touches on some of the combine winners and losers. Who do you think, quarterback wise, who do you think were some of the biggest winners at the combine?
oh, Anthony Richardson, but he gives me that Cam Newton vibe. Very good athlete, but I, anybody who runs a 4.4 and a 40 is moving, especially when you're 240 pounds. Two, actually, let me get it right. 244, which is
A
that's
little bit
moving.
small, which is a little
Like
bit
that's
smaller than
him.
Cam was. That's about
Yeah, a little bit smaller than Cam.
10 pounds, 12 pounds smaller than Cam was,
Yeah,
and he's only about an inch shorter because Cam was. Let me take a look. Well, go ahead and keep talking. I'm just look up Cam's combine
yeah.
result.
Because they got him at 6'4", 244 with a 4.43, a 40.5-inch vertical, and a 10.9 broad jump. Yeah, he moving like I'm a. I know you didn't ask for this, but I'm just for example, somebody who I think hurt themselves at the combine was Jordan Addison from USC, wide receiver, much smaller, slower 40. He didn't have the vertical jump or the broad jump of
See, there
Anthony
you go.
Richardson.
There you go, jumping all the way in the wide receivers. We talking about quarterbacks. See how black people do you.
Hey, I'm doing comparison. For comparison's sake.
We gonna get to the wide receivers.
Just comparison. That just shows his athletic ability. He looked very his film this year didn't look that great, but they say that his team around him wasn't very great. But I didn't watch a lot of Florida tape. I watched some highlights here and there once he performed like this at the combine. And if he gets in the right system, I think he can be a good quarterback. I think he can be this draft's Josh Allen, the quarterback that came in athletic, a little rough around the edges. If you get him some coaching, he can be a guy that can lead your team for the future.
Right. Um, I will say that I agree that Anthony Richardson definitely helped himself. I'll also say that even though he did have he's been ranked very highly on draft boards anyway. I'm also going to say that CJ Stroud helped himself at the combine from a standpoint of looking as advertised, right? So playing in a playing for on the big stage for Ohio State, even though they don't necessarily run a pro style offense. That is the knock on Ohio State QBs over the last couple of years have been that they're underprepared for an NFL style offense. So they have the physical tools and they aren't rattled by the lights because, they come from a high pressure environment playing in that for that school and in that conference. They're generally on a big stage. But when you have to go into an NFL locker room and learn the nomenclature of a system, of a pro style system, it can be a little bit much to catch up with. Now, I don't think that it's anything that CJ can't handle, but it remains to be seen. I still think that even with all his accomplishments in college, a team is not going to expect him to come in and win right away. Like I'm not saying he won't win the starting job, especially he's gonna go in the top three picks. Let's be clear. Like he's a top three pick looking at the teams that the quarterback needs, and we probably will see a couple of more trades. Since the Cardinals currently sitting at 3, theoretically don't need a quarterback. One of those teams is going to trade up, um, especially if we say, for instance, don't see Stroud taken with the number 1 pick. Todd McShay, for some unknown reason, seems to think that Bryce Young is going to go number 1. That would be extremely interesting if that happened, considering his pro day measurements. So actually, I'll use that to slide over into some people who may have been hurt by the combine. Bryce Young, of course, with some questions about his durability, coming in a little bit coming in under 6 feet and just over 200 pounds, his official weights. And even some people questioning, saying he's probably still under 200. We've seen some old school NFL cats talking about the tricks that you can do to give yourself an extra 5 to 7 pounds on the day of the weigh-in. just to give yourself a little bit of advantage. But although those things may be in question about his durability, you cannot question his leadership. You cannot question his ability to know the game from a mental aspect, and you definitely can't question his ability to win. As the quarterback of the University of Alabama, Heisman Trophy winner, national championship winner, like he's done it all. And again, that program, those lights, that pressure, he knows what it feels like. But what do you think?
I don't want to be the guy who goes, but Alabama quarterbacks don't do nothing. Two of the you know, jury's still out on Tua. If he can get past his concussions, he may be the quarterback that breaks that mold. Because at one point we had the mold where like, okay, Alabama running backs don't do nothing.
But
and then Derrick Henry kind of broke that. Mark Henry, I mean Ingram kind of broke that. Because there are some people want to say, what about Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts left Alabama and went to Oklahoma.
Hold on,
Oklahoma quarterbacks also.
But you can't say he's an okay. So are you trying to say that he only gets counted as the last place he was because he spent 3 years at Alabama and 1 year at Oklahoma? So is it really fair to call him to say he can't be counted in the ranks as Alabama QBs?
I'll put it like this: it don't matter where you count them. Both schools got quarterbacks that are questionable. Okay, look at Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks. Which one of them has done something? If we're gonna count him as an Alabama quarterback, Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks, just like these Alabama quarterbacks you just talking about, got Heisman trophies. They don't have the national championships. Kyler Murray got a Heisman. Baker Mayfield got a Heisman.
That they do.
Jalen Hurts, wasn't he in the contention for the Heisman? Caleb Williams got a Heisman.
While he was at Alabama, Jalen Hurts came in second for the Heisman, second or third for the Heisman. Not while he was at Oklahoma. He did okay at Oklahoma, but he didn't put up Heisman worthy numbers at Oklahoma. So I get it. See,
I was talking, but it's like you got a lot like the thing I've always said is when it comes to these Alabama quarterbacks, are they as good as advertised, or do they have so much talent around them that it makes them better? It's not that they're not good. It's how do you separate the quarterback from the talent that's around him?
Yeah, because once again, there's going to be probably a couple of Alabama receivers taken in early rounds of the draft. And that does make your job easy.
Tua got the luxury of playing with Jalen Waddle and Waddle, Williamson.
Ruggs was there.
That guy. Before he got himself out of the league with stupidity.
But we talking about what he did in college. You can't deny Ruggs' ability in college.
Oh yeah.
Devontae Smith was there for both.
There's plenty of both of them. Yes, there's plenty of talent around, but the question becomes, how do you play without said talent? That's why I said the jury's still out on Tua because he didn't bomb like some other quarterbacks of the past have done. So, like it's the same thing with Oklahoma, but we won't go down that rabbit hole because they got some talent at wide receiver and their quarterbacks come in the league and they haven't just blown the doors off anybody either.
Before we move on to wide receivers and touch on them, I just want to ask you, did you see the pictures that Will Levis posted of his workout?
I saw some pictures talking about he wasn't in shape, but I haven't.
Oh, well, you should go. You should go ahead and Google real quick. Go ahead and Google Will Levis. Matter of fact, let me do that as well.
What did Will Levis post now? Because I did see some pictures earlier when he was telling his inner no shirt moot. Is that what he's talking about?
Yes. So let me
I saw him out here posting shirtless photos, and I just kept scrolling. I'm like,
he took it down off of it. Let's see. I'm gonna find this photo because I'm
He was
like,
out here with his no shirt boot on.
wait a
Like
minute,
I'm
bruh.
not even clicking that.
I'm like, come on now, bruh. Here we go.
Will Levis said he out here letting y'all know he got that in the gym.
Now we just gonna share this real quick, just so the people can see. Now, this is Will Levis, a quarterback, who says that
I saw that and kept scrolling.
at the end of last season, he was quote unquote out of shape due to injury. And now this is a recent photo that he posted. And the joke from multiple NFL players have been in the vein of, sir, this is a drug-free league if no one's ever told you. There were fake pictures of meme-like responses saying, Mr. Levis, you have been selected for a random drug screening. Please report to the athletic center by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Your testing window closes at 11. I also got in on the fun and said that it's good to see that
Of
the
course you did.
spirit of LeBron Landry is alive and well in today's athletes. Because
I did see that.
I mean, that is a lot of muscle mass to pack on in 3 months. I'm not saying the young man didn't do it naturally. What I am saying is, don't be surprised if he gets a knock on his door from the pre-draft testing people. So,
The drug test, the drug test ain't random. I know that.
but I
The
will say this,
NCAA,
right?
this is the NFL. I know for a fact that the NCAA showed up at Prairie View and randomly tested every transfer the year I was there.
Oh
How do
yeah,
you test all the transfers?
exactly,
What random? How random is that?
exactly. So it's like the
Ain't random.
porter.
That's
It's
okay.
like the porter
Moving on.
triggers. The portal now triggers an automatic few entries into the random testing algorithm. But all I will say is one of the other comments someone got was, "Don't get it twisted. Having a lot of muscle doesn't mean you can know how to play quarterback." And their rebuttal response was a photo of Brady Quinn on the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine. And we all know how that ended. So, when was the last time you heard
Yeah.
Brady Quinn in the pocket, looks downfield, interception?
I don't know.
Oh, so since you touched on wide receivers, let's reverse it. Let's talk about wide receivers that hurt themselves in the combine. Now what were you
You
saying
know,
about that young man from USC?
he is he's a smaller man, and then he didn't come in and perform very well from an athletic standpoint. So there's going to be some people who are going to mark him down. But in my mind, in reality, the man can actually—he's a good football player. He won the Bolitnikov Award, so we know he can play. But you have to. There are some people who are going to mark him down because of that. I'm not one of those people, but I know that it's going to affect him because there are people who are going to be like, "Oh, but he didn't know." You 179 pounds, I thought it said. Point being, he ain't very big. He came in
No.
here and ran a 449. Now let's be real, a 449 is not slow, but for NFL standards, people try to make it out to be like he just slow. He not. But
And
in
it
this day and
also,
age, blazing speed is
but you
perceived
don't
to not
but you
make
don't run
maybe
in a
not as
straight
slow.
line. But you don't run in a straight line in
I
the
agree.
NFL. So that's why I mean, even I get it. It's the test itself is supposed to be, testament of your physical capability. But since you don't run very often in just a straight line in the NFL, that shouldn't be anything that affects you. And again, I know it's an old example, but it's one that continues to be the standard. What did Jerry Rice run in the combine? Something like something close to a 4.6, right? How'd that work out for Jerry Rice? So, but since we're talking about schools that you don't trust players from, my bigger knock on him is the fact that he's a USC wide receiver than his height and weight. Because you talk about a long list of underperforming players that were hyped up coming out of college. So you got to go Alabama quarterbacks. You definitely have to say USC wide receivers. I mean, they look great in college and then get to the NFL and you wonder what happened. Is this the same guy? So very very we shall see. Um of course the receiver that of course helped himself is my boy Jackson Smith Nips. Now I always screw up his last name, so I'm just gonna call him Jackson Smith Njiba. Uh
From Ohio State.
yeah. I mean, they've got a high quality program, solid performer. Um, he's ready to help a team that needs a receiver. So we'll see where he goes. I'm just trying to see. I mean, he's projected to go somewhere late in the first round on anywhere from 20 to now. One mock draft has him going in the top 15. Interesting. Don't know if the Titans are really the team to be looking for wide receiver help right now, considering their potential issues at quarterback. So, but we shall see, you know. Um, but I mean, the other thing about wide receiver is that to me is one of the positions that is almost the most hit or miss, where the school you went to or the program you were in can put your name out there, but a good wide receiver in the NFL can literally come from anywhere. If you've got hands, if you can block, if you can catch, you can run routes. If you get into a camp and show your ass, you can get paid. You look at Mac Hollins,
Mm-hmm.
who just got paid, who was been a special team player for the Raiders who was a special team player for the Raiders for years. Thanks to injuries, he was the put on the roster. He got a lot more snaps at wide receiver this year. Made some big catches, made 2 game-winning catches for the Raiders this year, and just got paid in Atlanta. So wide receiver talent is one of those things you don't have to overreach for. You don't have to overpay for. So they're only slightly higher than running backs when it comes to NFL expendability. Like anybody gonna jump that high. Like there's, a couple of good running backs this year. Uh, the guy from Texas, Brown, Evan Hull. But I want to touch on a couple of local running backs from the Houston area that are in the draft this year, and that's Devon Achane from Texas A&M, and then what's the young man? I'm blanking on his name right now. That's coming out of Ole Miss that started at TCU. Uh,
Oh, um, I know
Zach
you're talking
Evans.
about. I can't think of. He went.
Zach Evans.
Yeah, the
Zach.
one from North Shore.
Yep. So both of them are ranked in the top 10 for their position this year uh, on several different boards. So it would be interesting. And Devon is actually a former student of mine from when I worked at Marshall. So very level-headed young man. Both of them are also, former track stars. Devon came up in that Marshall High School track machine, which has been producing track championships like old Mother Hubbard produced babies back in the day. So it would be interesting to see a few boys from the state of Texas getting drafted this year to see what they can do out there on Sundays, since they've done it on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays their whole lives. Um, And so, last area we want to talk about, let's talk about defensive line. And I really just want to touch on Jalen Carter from the University of Georgia in his very unique situation. What do you think about Carter?
I think that is the situation was unfortunate. Somebody is going to take him off of their board because of it. But if he can get his head right and get back mentally and physically where he was during the season, he could be this draft's Laramie Tunsil, the guy who had something bad come out about him. He dropped a little bit, but his play on the field didn't fall.
Right.
The difference is Carter's pro day. They say he was 10 pounds heavier than he was at the combine, and that he couldn't even finish his drills.
Right. Ended up watching some of the final drills because he tweaked something. I'm pretty sure that, of course, I hope that was a wake up call to him right then, because he still, of course, will have opportunities for private workouts over the next several weeks leading up to the draft. So he definitely has a chance to get himself back into shape and to show teams that he's not only physically but mentally ready. Yeah, the University of Georgia has produced a lot of talent on the field. I mean, back-to-back national championships. So, it's not like it's a unknown factor that they have talent on their team, and that talent is going to have opportunity to play at the next level. So you just hated to see not only him, but pretty much Nolan Smith was the only one of that vaunted front seven that had a decent combine. The rest of the guys just kind of looked like they were thinking they could half-ass it. Like, dude, this is not the situation where you're on the field as a team, and if you miss something, you got the rest of the guys to back you up or to clean your mistakes up. Nah, this is you. This is your future. You got to prove to these teams that you can do it at the next level. And this ain't Georgia Tech out there, right? It's just like when people try to think that, oh, Georgia could beat who would you say was the worst NFL team this past year? Colts, Jets, Panthers, any of them, pick one. If you tried to put the University of Georgia out there against any of those teams, it would be a blowout. Because you have a group of kids playing against 53 grown ass men. And you're not going to be able to do it like you do against Alabama. Is good, but Alabama doesn't have 100 pros on their roster. They have 100 really good college players on their roster. So beating Florida, beating Alabama, and beating Tennessee, whoever else,
Sure.
It ain't gonna cut it for you. And so you try to come out there.
Stetson Bennett might be older than some of these NFL players. So.
Stetson Bennett is definitely older than some of these NFL players.
Oh, keep in mind they gave him a 6 year. Some of these dudes might be NFL age by far.
Listen,
but still, they not beating no NFL team.
Speaking of a person who has not been helping their draft prospects, Stetson Bennett, again, very smart on the field, winner on the field, walk on to two-time national champion. I mean, it's the stuff of it's the stuff of dreams. But 5'11", a little bit heavy, one DUI in the offseason, and then he had another incident in the offseason. He's not helping his draft prospects at all. He's a guy that needed to have a flawless pre-draft to move himself up on the board, and that has not happened. So I don't know if any teams are going to be willing to take a chance on anything above a fourth, fifth round, maybe. But hell, Kirk Cousins was a fourth round. Was he fourth or fifth round? And somehow he keeps getting paid $60 million every couple of years to play football. I mean, hey, you win the NFC North, show your ass to go out there, and I mean, you have one of the biggest comebacks in NFL history. in the season and then go out there and lay a mother flipping goose egg in the playoffs against a team that barely made the playoffs. So
Yes.
it is what it
Several
is, though.
circles.
So, but combine was fun, but those guys are still trying to prove their worth for the future. That made way to the start of the NFL business year, or as we like to call it, the opening of NFL free agency. So, lots of teams. We knew that they were making some big changes this year. So we don't want to touch on all of them. We just want to touch on a few of the bigger moves. So let's start with the Buccaneers. Jared, bless you. With the retirement of Tom Terrific looking like it's actually going to be official and stick this time, since he's actually sent in paperwork this time, what do you think of your team's free agent pickup at the quarterback position?
um, we signed Baker Mayfield, and my only hope is that between him and Kyle Trask, the second round pick from a couple years ago, and the addition of Dave Canales, the quarterback coach from Seattle, who helped turn Geno Smith into the quarterback everybody thought he was going to be when he came out of West Virginia, that maybe we can be decent this year. But it's like a double-edged sword. I've seen some fans like we need to tank to get a quarterback. Some fans are like, let's see what they can do. Because we got a lot of one-year contracts floating around because Tom's retirement left us in a huge salary cap hole.
Man,
I think Baker can be serviceable. I don't expect him to be the quarterback that lead us to a Super Bowl, but I think we could get in as a wild card team because the NFC South is not very good. That was proved last year.
was it fair to put the majority of, I would say, it it's was it fair to put it all on Byron Leftwich? Like, it's hard to say that it was a quote unquote failed season when you won your division and you went to the playoffs, right? Like that is a level of success. But when you've gone to the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship in the two previous seasons with largely the same cast and characters, minus Gronk, minus AB, uh, but it's not like you didn't have anybody still being able to, it's not like you didn't have servable replacements for them. Was it fair to say if anybody has to get fired, it's Byron?
Um, as someone who watched all the games, my biggest gripe with Leftwich is when in doubt, Tom Brady would look at that wristband and start calling plays off of it, and the team moving up and down the field. And the one thing that obviously that you don't know because you're not there, what was the whole like? We always know there was a bunch of hurt linemen. That's going to affect your output. But if Brady is sitting here calling plays off a wristband and moving the team up and down the field in a no huddle situation or up tempo, why are you trying to slow the game down? Like I understand that you have an older quarterback, you have hurt linemen, but obviously if the ball is moving, either you just need to say, you know what, I'm gonna let this man run the offense. We just gonna have a meeting on Monday and discuss what kind of plays we gonna call and just get out the way. Sometimes less is more. And I think that's why he got fired. Because if the offense just looked horrible game in and game out, they might have gave him another year, in my opinion. But when Brady would start running plays off the wristband and the offense was moving up and down the field, and the fact we played in the NFC South, so there were some teams that weren't very good, which allowed us to stick around and win some games we probably shouldn't have won. It made it look worse. Because now
Indeed.
people are questioning, okay, why is the offense moving quickly and getting the job done, but other times they just slow and methodical.
Right. Okay. So what Baker does have is, he has weapons at the receivers and receiving, even though, as a Mike Evans owner in fantasy last year, there were times where I couldn't figure out where the he was. Somehow, some way, this man still ended up north of 1,000 yards receiving, and has set
That's
the
because Brady said he gonna get people paid. That's Brady's
and
thing. He gonna make sure you get your 1,000 yards unless you're paid.
and so he has now set the record for consecutive seasons with 1,000 yards uh, receiving. So Baker has some weapons. So good luck. So besides Baker Mayfield, who do you think? What other positions right now do you think are a target for your team to upgrade through free agency? Is there anybody out there you'd like them to say
Uh,
to sign, or if you wish they could make a trade for?
I'm trying to see what we got rid of our left tackle. He had been questioned, like he played horrible this year in my opinion, and he had been questionable the previous years. So we lost some people who signed 1 year contracts with other teams. Offensive line is a concern for me. The biggest concern for me right now is safety because we got Antoine Winfield and some guy who I don't even know. The rest of the, if we had to play a game, I think I looked at the depth chart. The other starting safety would be some undrafted guy who I don't even know who he is. Safety is a big concern. Offensive line is a big concern. And we need somebody on the interior line opposite Vita Vea. Because at no point should your leading sacker or sack person be your 350-pound nose guard.
Not unless it's Warren Sapp reincarnated and he wasn't.
He led the team in sacks. He's a very athletic, large man, but he
Right,
should not be. I will say that Shaq Barrett got hurt,
right.
but still, somebody else should have stepped up and got. I think Vita Vea had 7 sacks. Come on now, people. Y'all are outside linebackers, and no, we need more than 7 sacks from y'all.
Right. Uh, since you mentioned offensive linemen, I just want to touch on Orlando Brown Jr. for a moment, right? Who comes off of a Super Bowl win with the Chiefs, and who, if reports are to be believed, had a chance to sign what would have been the largest offensive line contract in history in 2022. So his offer at the time was 6 years, 139 million with a $30 million signing bonus. That's what was reported that he rejected. After this season, he then signs a deal with the Bengals, who, as we all know, Joe Burrow has become the most sacked quarterback since David Carr. Um, Signs a deal 4 years, 64 million with the Bengals. Still got his 30. He got his 31 million guaranteed. Much shorter contract, and the yearly average amount is much lower. So big win for the Bengals, big loss for the Chiefs. But did Orlando Brown really win?
Uh, what I heard was the Chiefs wanted him to like he wants to play left tackle, and I heard the Chiefs wanted him to go back to right tackle.
Mm.
And he found somebody that would say, "Yeah, you're our left tackle," so he went and played left tackle. You know, it is what it is.
Indeed.
I don't feel sorry for any of these guys. They making millions of dollars. Make your decisions. You make millions. I can't. There are people in all sports who make some real questionable decisions. You know, this man signed, like you said, a 4 year, $64 million contract, $31 million signing bonus. You got $31 million to sign your name. You good? Nah, you
uh,
good.
But just to let me see. Let me just look at this since we brought up Laramie Tunsil. Now, Laramie Tunsil did just sign what is the largest considered to be the largest left tackle deal because he got a 3-year, $75 million deal with 60 million guaranteed. Rumble, young man, rumble. Laramie Tunsil. So definitely doing his thing. Now, I do think that that deal is going to get overdone because I believe. Let me see before I see here.
These boys are here making some money.
Right. So we'll see if that deal holds over the year as the largest that we see in this offseason. But so we did the Buccaneers. So I'll talk about my Raiders. So before the season ended, the will they, won't they saga and drama of the relationship between Mike McDaniel and Derek Carr came to a surprising end where it was decided that Jarrett Stidham would start once the Raiders were eliminated mathematically from playoff contention. Um, it was decided that the Raiders would shut Carr down for the rest of the season, and he decided to step away from the team and ended up being best for all parties because Carr's contract had a clause where if he was injured and going into the offseason, that he had a escalator or a guaranteed roster bonus that would be due. And the Raiders, of course, knew that they were not going to stick with him, were not willing to hold on to him for that bonus. So they took the chance, they took all chance of him being injured out. They tried to work a trade, but of course, why would a team give up something when they know that they can get him for nothing if a team's going to cut him? Carr also chose not to waive his no trade clause, as well as he did not give the Raiders an extension on the deadline within his contract, where he had to either be cut or traded. So he ended up being released, and he was picked up by the New Orleans Saints. That also left a big hole in the Raiders for QB1. A lot of the big talk and a lot of speculation went back to the same place it's been for the last 2 summers, wondering if the Raiders would try to make a push to sign Aaron Rodgers. Since the Raiders signed Devontae Adams last year, people were wondering if there would be a reunion in Las Vegas. And there was a lot of talk, but that was all speculation from fans and bloggers. The Raiders themselves never came out and said that they were targeting him or recruiting him. I'm 100% certain that there were conversations with the Packers, but with the compensation that they would have been asking for, that they are asking for, was too high of a price to pay. And although Rodgers is 37 years old, still looks good, still playing at a high level, not something that the team was willing to pay for at this time. So we ended up signing Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, it remains to be seen if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be an upgrade at the position over Carr. No matter what anyone says about Derek Carr, he won a lot of games for the Raiders. He took the Raiders to the playoffs in a year that had so many ridiculous things happen that if you tried to sell it as a script, they would tell you it was not believable, even for a fairy tale. Coach get fired, wide receiver gets caught in a DUI death accident. Your special teams coach becomes the head coach. Everything that was going on, and yet and still somehow he made the playoffs. Without Carr, we don't do that at all. Period. But just because he won games in the past, this is still a business. In the NFL, more than any other league, is a lot of the what have you done for me lately. So we had to move on. But I wish him nothing but the best of luck in New Orleans. And I think he'll win some games for him. But along with signing Jimmy Garoppolo, the Raiders also for some unknown reason, after being offered a second round pick for him to go to the Packers last year, the Raiders, after signing Darren Waller to a large extension, traded him to the Giants for a fourth rounder. Now, I'm a head scratching on that one because when healthy, Darren Waller is a top three. He's a top three tight end in the NFL. He had a lot of injuries this past season. That happens in football. But I already know that if Danny Dimes does half of what he did this past year, Waller's going to have a monster season. And I'm going to go find Mike McDaniels and slap that visor off the top of his head for that stupid move. And in return, we signed Jacoby Myers, a free agent from New England. So it's like, are we trying to become the Las Vegas Patriots here? Like, what are we doing, Josh? So I'm a fan.
Going for what he knows.
Listen, I'm a person that tries not to get too high or too low when it comes to my team. So I try to keep it even keel. So all I can say is this shit better work. So that's all I'm gonna say. In terms of who I'd like to see us target right now, I mean, I sure wish we would have hold off on that whole Jimmy Garoppolo thing until we knew that Lamar Jackson was asking to be traded. Because I sure would like to throw out, I don't care what nobody says. That man is talented. That man can play some damn quarterback. And I sure wish that we would still be in the Lamar Jackson hunt right now. Because I would not mind seeing that man in silver and black. This is one of those times where I'm like, I sure wish Al Davis was still alive. Because if Al Davis was alive, Lamar Jackson would be a Raider. Plain and simple. But yeah, so we have some things we want to address. So we have a franchise tag on our running back right now, Josh Jacobs, who wants to be a longtime Raider, and I think we will get a deal done to keep him because Josh was running like a man possessed. I think that it was a mistake not to pick up his fifth-year option because it would have given us another year cushion instead of being in this position where we had to do this negotiation a year early. But I believe that a deal is going to be done because he's proven it on the field and he's proven that he can do it in all facets of the game at the running back position. So only thing I want to touch on when it comes to your boy Deuce's team, the Chargers. Please talk about what they're doing with their all-world running back.
Simply put, they signed him to a very team-friendly deal because he was still splitting carries with Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's gone. He carried the bulk of the load. Now he wants to be paid like somebody carrying the bulk of the load. I fully understand that. If I'm not mistaken, they offered him the opportunity to go seek a trade, which I'm not sure I would have done, but I guess in retrospect, you don't really, you want to give him the opportunity to go search for a trade because obviously somebody else is going to tell him, yeah, we'll trade for you, we'll give you this contract. Then you can give him whatever contract they was going to give him and save yourself the time. Or if you just think that you get a lot for him, you let him go. But considering, I don't know who their backup running back is, they might want to keep the man unless you got a plan.
I don't know. There's a few running. There's a few running backs out there.
Draft.
There's a few in this draft. I mean, the Chargers made the playoffs, so they're in the mid-20s with their pick. But there's a few free agents out there, or a few guys that probably won't be with their current teams. Zeke Elliott released, Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara, and there's even whispers that Derrick Henry, who's entering the last year of his contract, he wants a new one. Titans aren't willing to commit. So apparently he also has permission to quietly seek a trade. So you never know. We might see we might if I'm the Chargers, I don't let him walk because his offensive production has been he's been the little engine that could for them the last 2 years. He's the reason why they almost made the playoffs 20 in 21, 22. And he's a big reason when their wide receivers were injured most of the year, when Keenan and Mike Williams were hurt most of the year. He kept that offense going. Not only can he score running the ball, I mean, he's great catching passes out the backfield. He's a versatile running back. And if they let him walk, some team is going to get a very shiny new toy. And I think the Chargers will miss him if they let him go. So I want to touch on two more things before we go. What's up with your boy Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers wants attention, basically. he acted like a stereotypical scorned woman who's trying to get attention because they were not happy in their previous relationships. Because I can't really figure out why this trade has not occurred between them and the Jets. You say that's what you want to play. It just sounds like you holding up progress. I know by now they would have worked this trade out.
He said it's not him. He said that the Packers are being unreasonable in the compensation. He didn't say it, but the reports are that the Packers asking price is too high. Apparently, he has agreed to go to the Jets. The Jets have said that they want him, but the details on what the ask are and what the offer is are being very guarded, right? So he said that on March 15th of the Pat McAfee show, he said that he's been committed to playing for the Jets next season since last Friday. So that means that since Friday, March the 10th, in his mind, he's a Jet. What happens if they can't get a deal done?
I think the holdup, everything you said is guarded, has to do with that big ass contract of his. So they trying to, just playing armchair GM. As I pull up Aaron Rodgers' contract, I believe that the dead cap is so big that they're probably trying to get the Jets to pay some of it, or they're trying to get more draft picks out of them. And I think that's the holdup.
What do you think?
I'm looking at this.
Oh, go ahead.
This says if they trade Aaron Rodgers pre-June 1st, there is a $40 million dead cap. If they trade him post-June 1st, it's 15.8 this year and 24.4 next year. So do you think they're trying to hold off till June 1st?
No.
Can you designate a trade June 1st? Because if you could designate that trade June 1st, then that's not the holdup. It might just be they trying to do what they should have been doing for years and finally use some draft picks to build around their quarterback.
They pay a lot of really smart mathematicians a lot of money to figure out ways to offset things like the dead money and the cap and push them down the line. I think that if the Packers and the Jets could come to an agreement on right now, it seems like from this article I'm looking at that the holdup is hinging on the fact that the Jets do not want to give up the number 13 pick in this year's draft. It seems like the Packers are asking for a 1 and a 2, and the Jets are offering 2 2s and a 3. So that definitely puts you far apart in terms of picks, because because the offer is not for them to swap ones this year. The offer is straight up for their number 1 this year, and then number 2 and number 1 this year, and number 2 next year. Which, again, if you're the Jets with that defense and those offensive weapons when healthy, quarterback was your Achilles heel last year. You can't get your first round draft pick to stop banging MILFs, and then you missed a no-name quarterback just wasn't getting it done. So you need a quarterback. You do. So do you think that the Jets at some point pivot and say, fuck it? Lamar Jackson wants out of Baltimore. He's younger,
By far.
got a great set of skills. If we're gonna give up a number
Aaron
one,
Rodgers, yeah, you're gonna give him a one.
if we're gonna give up a one, we're either gonna take on a short-term solution and that heavy cap, or if it's Lamar, we can at least structure the deal in a way that helps us. And even if we have to give him a long-term deal, he's still young enough to play the whole thing out. And he's talented enough to deserve it. So very interesting to see how this is going to play out with the quarterback shuffle this year. Last thing, and I just wanted to throw this out there. The other day, Cam Newton posted a photo of the 32 presumed starters in the NFL and essentially said, "You telling me that all 32 of these guys are better than me?" That made me think. If assuming that every quarterback, let's just leave Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay for now. Or even if you know what? I take that back. Let's take Aaron, put him on the Jets, and that moves what's his name? Jordan Love into the starting spot in Green Bay. Is Cam Newton below in talent level or ability all 32 of those quarterbacks? Or are there any quarterbacks you can think of that you would take Cam Newton over right now? So let's just throw some names out there. Would you take Cam Newton over Ryan Tannehill right now?
I'm gonna go back to something you said earlier. What have you done for me lately? The last time we saw Cam, he was throwing, as they like to refer to him, worm burners. That's why you don't have a job, Cam. You were throwing worm burners. You were throwing the ball to people who it should not be going to. Do I think that? I also believe that Cam was not fully healthy last time we saw him too.
In 2020, excuse me.
I believe if he is healthy and comes back, he is better than some of these quarterbacks. But as the phrase goes, what have you done for me lately?
If you are,
here's a question. Here's one for you.
Okay.
Do you think that the Baltimore Ravens would go get Cam Newton? Because you've already got this offense that is built around a mobile quarterback, which we know Cam is 32 years old? Because I think Cam should be in his.
He got to be about 32, 33.
32,
33 years old.
33.
But he's
come in there and run that offense for a couple.
But he's 2 years away from the game. He's still, when you look at him, he's still working out, still standing. If you look at his photos on social media, he's in shape, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't think the Ravens trade Lamar Jackson, I believe they need to call Cam to come in. Even if you trade Lamar, you bring in a rookie, you call Cam to come in there and compete, because now you have that stopgap quarterback, or if Cam wins the job.
I think they'd go get Jameis first.
Jameis signed back with the Saints, so
because he expects because he expects at some point that Derek Carr is going to get benched. I don't think it's going to happen, but the only reason I see him staying there, or the other reason is he's not fully healthy. I know he was healthy and he was back on the active roster in the number 2 spot last year, but I don't think Jameis is fully healthy yet. And I think that in order for him not to have that fact exposed and to not have to go through uh, physicals for other teams to do their due diligence, that he signed back with the Saints to give himself a chance to truly, fully get healthy this year,
Yeah.
backing up Carr. So, but I look at people like, would I take Cam over a Davis Mills? Probably. Before this season,
Yeah.
I definitely would have taken Cam over Geno. Now, no more. Um, I would say based on this past year, Russell Wilson and Cam are on the same level right now.
I'm still taking Russ because the way he finished the season.
Man, look
They
here.
got rid of
That Bron-
Nathaniel Hackett, and he looked serviceable. Things were
that
looking up after they got rid of Nathaniel Hackett.
the tires on that bus that the Broncos country was driving in was 4 stone squares. That bus didn't go nowhere. The Broncos country couldn't ride a roller coaster.
Hey, but you know what? they riding, so let them ride, and we gonna see what they do this year.
We shall see.
You
But
know?
I definitely would have taken Cam. I definitely would have taken Cam over either of the Jets quarterbacks from this past season. Um, so I will say that Cam's statement that all 32 of these quarterbacks are not better than me was a fair one. Um, talent wise, he definitely is better than some of those guys. He's definitely more accomplished because, again, let's not get it twisted. Okay. We're talking about former rookie of the year, former MVP, Super Bowl appearance. That's not a resume that there's a lot of quarterbacks that would love to have any of those accomplishments on their resume, let alone all of those accomplishments. So, I mean, you telling me Washington couldn't have used Cam last year? The Colts definitely could have used somebody other than Matt Ryan. So we shall see.
The Colts could have used anybody and been better.
Except for Carson Wentz. the Colts hate
But,
their fans.
but
That's what I've decided. That they hate their fans. Because
hey,
you went from Andrew Luck to Jacoby Brissett to Philip Rivers to Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan. What are you thinking? Like,
hey, the Colts.
but
You know, say Andrew Luck retired unexpectedly,
sure.
and it's all been downhill since.
But your offensive line was so terrible that you should have been prepared for the possibility that he was going to be killed on the football field with the way that boy was getting hit. And then the year after he retires, you decide, oh yeah, maybe we should spend some money on those guys that protect the dude throwing the football. And then for a couple of years, you had one of the top 5 offensive line groups in the NFL with nobody to protect. You got to put both of those together if you want to win football games. That's all I'm saying. So,
I
but
agree. Yeah,
but that's all for
they got the number 4 pick. They better go get a quarterback, and hopefully he can start for more than one season.
right. That's the good. Like I said,
Break the trend.
the good news for them is they should be able to pick one of the top 3 QBs in this draft. The question at this point becomes, will it be Anthony Richardson? Will it be Bryce Young? It shouldn't be CJ Stroud, who probably should be the number 1 pick in this year's draft, but they should have an opportunity to get their quarterback of the future. But unfortunately, for whoever that
Or Lamar
quarterback
Jackson.
is, or Lamar Jackson, they're not going to do it though. Indianapolis is way too white bread for Lamar Jackson to be their quarterback. Let's just be honest. People act like those things don't matter when the teams look at it, but the owner has 2 missions of professional sports teams. Put fans in the seats to make money, win championships. If the person can't do both, you're not going to care. So one usually precedes the other. But if you're the Colts and you're looking around, you don't think that Lamar Jackson's going to move the needle with your fan base.
I think Lamar put butts in seats.
He will, and he'll win you some games. But
exactly. We just talked about their quarterback history. Now, why you not? I bet they kick the tires on and see if they can at least see what is it going to take to
let
get
me
the win.
hold on. I want to say that the Colts were one of those teams that came out and said that they are not interested in Lamar Jackson. So
I swear I saw an article. Earlier this week that said that they were going to try to at least talk to Baltimore and see. Because I swear.
Okay, so yeah. Okay, so I had them wrong. It was the Falcons, the Raiders, and a couple of others that said that they weren't interested in Lamar Jackson when the trade rumors were out there. But the Colts apparently are in there, along with surprisingly the Patriots. I don't see that happening for sure because the Ravens ain't gonna take that Mac Jones contract. But anyway, so interesting to see where things fall.
I'm still on his rookie contract. Shouldn't be that bad. Mac Jones on a rookie contract. He can't be that bad.
Going from Lamar Jackson at quarterback to Mac Jones at quarterback is like trading in your Ferrari for an 86 Civic.
Wow.
It's reliable. It's dependable. It's going to get you there, but it ain't going to excite nothing. And it's not going to pass nobody.
I was just talking about from a money standpoint, taking Mac Jones would be a huge saving.
Money is not the problem. You the Ravens. You are a franchise that has won 2 Super Bowls in the last 20, a little bit over the last 20 years. Your fan base cannot go from MVP to who's that dude again?
If you get this quarterback who signed a 4-year, $15.5 million contract, and you got some free money, and you go get some help, you get 2 first-round picks, and you got your first-round pick for somebody else's, you can go get some wide receivers or a tight end or somebody, because that's been one of the issues Lamar has had, the lack of help around him.
The only person that's been reliable for him is Ty. And then his one good wide receiver, they traded him away to Arizona to do nothing. And they traded him for nothing. You trade away Hollywood Brown. So now he's basically got his tight end to throw to. So, of course, his numbers are going to be down. You try to go out there and throw to the no-name wide receiver group and see how you do.
It only works if you Patrick Mahomes.
Right. And unless you got Eric Bean,
he threw it to his tight end, and a bunch of receivers are like, yeah.
Unless you're the Patriots with Tom Brady.
It's a better group of no names.
another similarity between Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. Give me an all-world tight end and a bunch of dudes from the YMCA Rec League flag football team, and I'll win you a Super Bowl.
I think Juju Smith-Schuster and them are a little better than the YMCA team. They might be the equivalent of an XFL team because Juju had one good year, and that's about all I can think of for him. He had that one good year, and ever since he's been
well. He discovered
CFL
TikTok.
worthy.
He discovered TikTok. And it went downhill from there. So
okay, sure.
But all right, my brother. Have a great night, y'all. We'll come back and do this again sometime after the draft so that just like with our fantasy draft, we'll do some grades of our teams and see who got walked away with some steals, see who overreached, and generally just continue to play armchair GM because as a fantasy football owner, that's what you do. But you can't tell us that we couldn't run a real team in real life. Otherwise, why else would we be doing this? So until next time, we want to give a shout out to our co-host, our usual third co-host, Dr. Deuce, who is doing his fatherhood thing this evening and supporting his son's baseball team, who went in the extra innings. So if there was ever a better reason to miss a podcast recording, I can't think of one because family first. So hug those loved ones a little bit tighter. Make sure you tell the people that you love them. And we'll see you next time, friends.